Manager Cynthia ng mga Senti Boys at Kadobols. Just call me Manager.
When I think I'm going out of mind.
Efraim Montes po. Mga bro, ayusin nyo naman ang tono at kanta nyo dyan.
Alvin Olala po. Ma'am sir, swabe boses ko, di ba?
Baka siya. Ako. Ilang months? Joel Trinidad po. Baka ito.
Eh di ako na. Lord Mendoza po. Ang malayelong boses sa lahat. O Ege! Ege ka! Bahala ka sa buhay mo! Ege!
Para sa'yo, ang laban na to, Ron Herman po, ang kadobol ni Manny Pacquiao.
Sita eh! Ganda lalaki! Gilbert Orsini po! Kadobol ni Rene Riquezas!
At siya naman po, si Jonathan!
Ang kadobol ni Christopher De Leon!
Makigulo! Makitawa!
At makipagkantahan kasama natin ang ating mga OFW dito lang sa
Saya-saya!
Ate, bilisan mo! Alas 12 na!
Alas 12 na! Alas 12 na ba?
Alas 12 na nga!
Let's start the happy time! Let's start the happy time!
May sakit na lumalaganap, lunas di pa nahahanap. May paraan para wag kumalat, kaalaman ay ipamalas. Pag-aralan ko dali na, simulan ang disiplina. Mapahamak ay hindi na, lahat ito ay makakaya. May tamang paraan ng paghuhugas ng kamay. Distansya, pila-pila, takpan ng bibig. Stay sa bahay. Kung magiging kaisa tayo, nabilang sa pagsupong, sama-sama natin talunin sa COVID-19. Sa COVID-19.
Yo! Lahat tayo ay nababahala, ang dami ng gawain na naaantala. Atensyon nyo'y kailangan ng italaga. Kailangan mo na magtiis at magtiyaga. Yes! Kalusugan ay kaligtasan, lumalalang sakit ay kayang iwasan. Mag-ingat, sumunod, ito'y malulunasan. Darating din ang ginhawa ng kinabukasan. Ha!
May tamang paraan ng paghuhugas ng kamay. Distansya, pila-pila, takpan ng bibig. Stay sa bahay. Kung magiging kaisa tayo, nabilang sa pagsupong, sama-sama natin talunin sa COVID-19. Sa COVID-19. Kung magiging kaisa tayo, nabilang sa pagsupong, sama-sama natin talunin sa COVID-19. Sa COVID-19.
Sa pagkakaalam ko po, kahit kailan, hindi po lumabog ang araw. Ang mundo po ang tumatalikod sa araw, kaya po dumidilim.
Napakaganda ng pelikula, napakagaling ng direktor.
I highly
at
recommend
cast.
po yung pelikula. Panoorin niyo po.
Panoorin niyo po ito kasi for sure gagaan niyo po.
opening natin, successful siya. Hopefully, magtuloy-tuloy itong Make It Real. Taon-taon makapag-produce tayo ng mga bagong filmmakers na makakatulong natin sa mga susunod ng project ng EBC Films.
Let's make it real!
Sa lahat, nagpapasalamat po ako sa ating Panginoong Diyos.
Alam po namin merong uuwing panalo pero wala pong uuwing talo.
This program is rated PG. It contains themes and scenes which may not be suitable for very young audiences. Parental guidance is advised.
We're working to connect a region of over 600 million bridges between our lands.
Hello, I'm Alma Angeles. We're moving to the next stage of this pandemic, and as the world resets to the new normal, we find ourselves seeking the right balance between health and livelihood, constantly adjusting the boundaries between liberty and responsibility. Welcome to ASEAN in Focus. First, let's go to Vietnam, where Samsung's TV production will be relocated there. And during the ASEAN Summit, Vietnam suggested a safe tourism travel bubbles within the ASEAN region. Joining us live from Vietnam is Chriselle Lacuna. Hello, Chriselle.
Hello, Alma. Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon.
Yes, for the latest COVID-19 update, Vietnam reported 0 new coronavirus cases on Friday morning, with its tally still standing at 1,059, recoveries reaching 893, and deaths remaining at 35, according to the Ministry of Health. Let's go over our first headline: Samsung to relocate parts of TV production to Vietnam. Samsung Electronics will move parts of the company's TV production to Vietnam and some other countries after shutting down its only TV factory in China in late November. Samsung's Seoul TV factory in Tianjin, China, is scheduled to be closed at the end of November as part of the greater trend of businesses shifting supply chains away from China. Nikkei Asian Review quoted the South Korean electronics company as saying, following the shutdown, Samsung will shift its TV production to Vietnam, Mexico, Hungary, Egypt, and some other locations. The company has been losing market share in China due to rising competition from local brands, as well as boycotts triggered by Seoul's decision in 2016 to deploy a US-developed missile shield despite Beijing's objections, Nikkei Asian Review stated. In addition, the labor cost has also been rising rapidly in China. Samsung's TV factory in Tianjin, which opened in 1993, currently has approximately 300 employees, following multiple staff cuts. In late 2019, Samsung shuttered its smartphone factories in Tianjin and the production Chinese city of Huizhou. The firm announced in June that it would cease production in Tianjin and the southern Chinese city of Huizhou. Samsung still operates a household appliance plant in Suzhou and 2 chip factories in Xi'an. Another headline: Alma, Vietnam proposes tourism travel bubbles within ASEAN. Vietnam has suggested ASEAN to research safe travel bubbles within region amid the COVID-19 pandemic. Specifically, Vietnam wants ASEAN to research travel bubbles between green countries as a preliminary initiative in opening borders and forming safe travel zones. said Win Man Tien, Deputy Head of the National Assembly Foreign Affairs Committee. He made the remarks at a Wednesday meeting of the Committee on Economic Matters of the 41st General Assembly of the ASEAN Inter-Parliamentary Assembly. And I quote, travel bubbles would include specialized air routes to tourism sites in member countries. Tien explained, it means people traveling from and to different destinations are tested to make sure they are not infected with the novel coronavirus and that they would visit only those tourism sites before returning, using those that ensure certain green coverage and use organic products, Tien said. Passengers arriving in Vietnam have been in these ASEAN destinations for at least 30 days prior to boarding their flights. According to the Civil Aviation Administration of Vietnam, transit passengers will not be allowed in. Passengers must also furnish a certificate showing they tested negative for the novel coronavirus within 3 days before departure. On arrival, they would undergo rapid testing for COVID-19 with the cost covered by the airlines. They will have to pay for their own quarantine. Those are the updates from Vietnam. Back to you, Alma.
Thank you, Chriselle, for your updates there in Vietnam. Thank you for joining us. Have a great weekend.
You too, Alma. Have a great weekend. Reporting live from Ho Chi Minh City, this is Chriselle Yacuna. We live in interesting times.
And there's a rise in suicide cases in Thailand due to the pandemic. Joining us live from Bangkok, here's Christelle Mapa. Hello, Christelle.
Yes, Alma, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon.
And that is right. That's a very sad news. A rise in the suicide rate has set alarming bells ringing among health officials as they were certain that the increase was related to the outbreak of the coronavirus that makes life stressful. Figures of the Mental Health Department released on Thursday showed 2,551 people had killed themselves in the first half of this year, up by 22% from the same period of last year when 2,092 cases were reported. Personal problems, depression, economic pressure, and alcohol were the reasons leading people to take their own lives, according to the department. The release of the data came on the World Suicide Prevention Day on Thursday. The increased suicidal rate this year has reminded the public health officials of the financial meltdown in 1997 as it followed the same pattern. The rate of people committing suicide after the 1997 financial crisis peaked by between 20% and 30%, it added. Department Director General Ketipum Bongrejim linked the increase in the suicide cases this year to the outbreak of the deadly virus described the trend as worrisome. His assessment was in line with various studies in Thailand and abroad. In an effort to prevent more suicides, the department has sought help from the Crime Suppression Division, or CSD, in monitoring social media for distress signs or cry for help, as more people turn to social media when they do so. CSD Chief Police Major General Commander said the police agency would
Eat chocolate.
and social media administrators to find people planning to take their lives, post messages on Facebook and other social media platforms. The CSD can alert nearest police to intervene until public health officials arrive, he added. This update is from Bangkok Post. Back to you, Alma.
All right, thank you very much, Christelle, for your updates there in Thailand.
Thanks, Alma. Reporting live from Thailand, this is Christelle Mapa. We live in interesting times.
To Indonesia now, in the capital Jakarta, they are mulling imposing a partial lockdown as early as Monday over fears of a rise in COVID-19 cases. A report in Medical Express says more than 100 frontline doctors in Indonesia have already died of COVID-19, including 15 in Jakarta. 3 months ago, the capital lifted the lockdown, and since then, the infection rates soared. Governor Anies Baswedan said late on Wednesday that, quote, the Jakarta administration has decided to pull the emergency brake and to go back to large-scale restrictions. He said that without these fresh moves to contain the virus, the capital's hospitals could be overrun as early as next week, leading to collapsing health facilities. The Jakarta Post, meanwhile, reported that the government is currently preparing personnel from various institutions to carry out an operation to ensure that the implementation of the mask-wearing protocol in sub-districts and villages across Indonesia is implemented. The Jakarta Post said the operation will involve personnel from the Indonesian military, the national police, public order agencies, as well as prosecutors and judges. Jakarta recorded more than 50,000 confirmed cases, as well as more than 1,350 deaths. Now, salvage operation has begun on an oil tanker stricken off Sri Lanka as they battle the oil slick. Vanessa Viloria Silva joins us live from Sri Lanka. Hello, Vanessa.
Hi, Alma. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Go ahead.
Yes, Alma. The Navy said international experts boarded an oil tanker stricken off Sri Lanka to begin salvage operations as firefighters look to contain a large oil slick in the Indian Ocean. A huge week-long blaze aboard the New Diamond was finally extinguished on Wednesday, September 9. And though 270,000 tons of crude oil were unaffected, officials said diesel fuel had leaked into the water, creating a significant and expanding slick. The tanker is tied to a tug and keeping a distance of just 100 kilometers from Sri Lanka's shoreline. On Wednesday, the Indian Coast Guard said it was exploiting an aircraft to spray chemicals and minimize the impact of the fuels that leaked from the tanker. The salvage experts who boarded the vessel reported that the toxic gases had filled the stern section of the ship, and they will be removed using air blowers, Sri Lanka's Navy said. A powerful tugboat commissioned by the Dutch salvage company SIMT arrived from Singapore on Thursday to boost their efforts. The tug has specialized equipment to drain the seawater used to flood the engine from during the firefight and remove the gases. It was not immediately clear what the salvage company would do with the Panamanian registered tanker, but Sri Lanka authorized have asked them to tow it away from the island's water. The New Diamond issued a distress signal a week ago while passing Sri Lanka on its way to the northeast Indian port to Paradip, when a boiler exploded, killing a Filipino crewman. The remaining 22 crew were rescued. Both Sri Lanka Navies and ICG said the tanker's cargo of 270,000 tons of crude oil were still on board despite the fire that ravaged the vessel. Sri Lanka also planned to seek compensation for the diesel spill and recover the cost of responding to the fire and preventing a breakup of the 330-meter, 1,100-foot tanker. Back to you, Alma.
All right. Thank you very much for your update on the that tanker. And we look forward to more updates as we go along on this developing story. Thank you, Vanessa.
Thank you so much, Alma. Reporting live from Sri Lanka, this is Vanessa Viloria Silva, and we live in interesting times.
ASEAN in Focus will be right back.
The New Era University, in its 45th year of excellence, discipline, and service to humanity, will offer online education at all levels beginning this first semester academic year 2020 to 2021 through the NEU Virtual Learning Environment, or NEU VLE. New Era University offers a complete basic education cycle from kindergarten up to senior high school, offering all strands. NEU has 18 colleges, and 2 graduate schools. It also offers ALS and ETF. Best of all, NEU has the most affordable tuition fees among private universities in the Philippines. NEU is at Quezon City, the city of San Fernando, Pampanga, General Santos City, South Cotabato, Lipa City, Batangas, and Pinugay, Baras, Rizal.
New Era University is under the stewardship of Dr. Dilo L. Rosas.
What are you waiting for? Be part of the new normal. Enroll now. Classes start on October 5, 2020.
To the ASEAN summit now, where U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo urged Southeast Asian nations to cut ties with Chinese companies helping build islands in the South China Sea. His comments come at a regional Asian summit. Let's listen in.
Regional peace, security, and stability is in accordance with international law.
Welcome to the ASEAN-US.
We express serious concern over ongoing developments on the ground, including serious incidents, continued militarization and activities that infringe on the lawful rights of littoral countries, run counter to international law.
Don't let the Chinese Communist Party walk over us and our people. You should have confidence that America will be here in friendship to help you, just as we've been for the last 3.5 years. I'm happy to announce today some new initiatives to strengthen our bonds and support your sovereignty and your growth. First, we're pleased to adopt the ASEAN-US Plan of Action for 2021 to 2025 to guide our future engagement together, in line with ASEAN Outlook on the Indo-Pacific. We're launching, too, the Mekong-US Partnership to expand our engagement with the 5 countries of the Mekong region, a region of tremendous importance to ASEAN's prosperity and unity.
This year's ASEAN summit comes days after Beijing launched ballistic missiles in the South China Sea as part of live fire exercises. Vietnam, which is chairing the summit, expressed serious concern about recent militarization of the sea. But the Philippines already said last week it would not follow the U.S. lead because it needed Chinese investment, even as a fresh dispute between the two nations over Scarborough Shoal, one of the biggest or the region's richest fishing grounds, hangs over talks. And Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi laid blame on the United States for tensions, claiming Washington was becoming the biggest driver of the waterways militarization. Meanwhile, China called for an early conclusion of talks on the Code of Conduct with ASEAN to avert clashes in the South China Sea. Let's listen in.
When it comes to the South China Sea, our collective aspiration to agree on a mutually beneficial, effective, and substantive COC that would contribute to regional peace, security, and stability is in accordance with international law, including the 1982 UNCLOS.
We are seeking to finalize the COC on the basis of consensus building as early as possible to create a set of rules that reflect the region's characteristics and suit its reality and needs to effectively uphold the peace and stability of the South China Sea and this region.
U.S.-China rivalry is expected to dominate discussion at this year's ASEAN conference, which comes just days after Beijing launched ballistic missiles in the Flashpoint waters as part of live-fire exercises. Beijing claims the majority of the resource-rich South China Sea, invoking its so-called nine-dash line to justify its alleged historic rights to the key trade waterway, also contested by Vietnam, the Philippines, Malaysia, Brunei, and Taiwan. And as tensions simmer, Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi told an online meeting of foreign ministers from Southeast Asian countries that, quote, the United States is becoming the biggest driver of militarization of the South China Sea. Mr. Wang also said that China's greatest interest in the waters was peace and stability, while accusing the U.S. of creating tension and seeking profit from it. Meanwhile, Australia said it wants to see a prosperous Indo-Pacific region free from coercion and where international law is respected. Let's listen in.
Since we last met in June, sadly the pandemic has claimed more lives and livelihoods, including in parts of Australia. And I extend my condolences to those who have suffered and for those lives lost. I also commend the tireless efforts of the region's medical and frontline workers. As I said when we last met, I'm very grateful for all of your government's meaningful and practical cooperation with Australia on consular challenges arising from the pandemic. You have helped us bring thousands of Australians home, including in facilitating flights. And likewise, we continue to work with you to ensure the safety of your own citizens in Australia and to assist where possible in their return. Colleagues, when we last met, I spoke about the critical importance that Australia attaches to ASEAN. ASEAN and the structure, the architecture that it leads, including the East Asia Summit, has a pivotal role to play in responding to the strategic and economic challenges arising from the pandemic. As ASEAN's longest-standing dialogue partner, it is natural for Australia that ASEAN should play such a central role in responding to the shared challenges of our times, including COVID-19. Australia's vision for the Indo-Pacific has ASEAN at its absolute centre. The pandemic has only reinforced this. We share with ASEAN a commitment to ensuring a peaceful and prosperous Indo-Pacific region, free from coercion and where sovereignty, international law and the rights of all states are respected and upheld. Our recovery from the pandemic is intertwined with ASEAN's. A rapid and sustainable ASEAN recovery will help us all, help Australia and help the region. We all have a role to play to ensure an open, inclusive and rules-based regional order, an order based on the principles in the ASEAN Outlook on the Indo-Pacific. Colleagues, in this regard, I welcome your recent statement on the importance of maintaining peace and stability in Southeast Asia just a month or so ago.
Meanwhile, Japan's Foreign Minister Toshimitsu Motegi pledged $1 million or 106 million yen to assist ASEAN in its fight against COVID-19. Let's listen in.
Though constrained under the impact of COVID-19, I have been giving priority to visiting ASEAN countries and had meaningful discussion in dealing with COVID-19 and recovery of the economy. I would like to once again thank the foreign ministers of the respective countries. In January, at the new ASEAN Secretariat, I delivered my first policy speech after assuming the office of Foreign Minister, and I highlighted the three courses of ASEAN-Japan cooperation, namely nurturing people, building institutions, amassing our wisdom. In July, the Mekong-Japan Foreign Ministers meeting was held in a video conferencing format, and we had meaningful discussion on Japan-Mekong cooperation, on universal health coverage, and on integrated strengthening of the economy. And yesterday, on the 8th, to strengthen cooperation in the power sector in the Mekong region, Japan and the U.S. issued a joint ministerial statement on Japan-U.S. Mekong Power Partnership. Building on this statement, we want to steadily push forward development of quality energy infrastructure as well as technical cooperation. As countries are working hard to combat the new coronavirus, as a true friend of ASEAN, we would like to work hand in hand with you to overcome this difficulty. As one concrete measure, Japan wholly supports the establishment of ASEAN Center for Emerging Diseases and Public Health Emergencies as a flagship of Japan-ASEAN cooperation. We want to develop this center to protect people from the threat of infectious diseases, and that it will be the center of ASEAN's countermeasures against infectious diseases. We also fully support and offer our cooperation to the COVID-19 ASEAN Response Fund, which has the objectives including procurement of medical supplies and development of vaccines. As Japan's own contribution, we have decided to make a contribution of $1 million. We hope that it will be used in a meaningful way. Japan fully supports AOIP. When countries are busy dealing with COVID-19 domestically, it is now that the importance of AOIP is increasing with its guiding principles, including openness, transparency, good governance, and the rule of law. In the speech I gave in January, I made an appeal to make 2020, this year, the first year of strong promotion of further cooperation between ASEAN and Japan to bring about a free, open, and prosperous Indo-Pacific. AOIP has many elements in common with Japan's free and open Indo-Pacific initiative. I want to build concrete cooperation between Japan and ASEAN relevant to AOIP. I hope that
Meanwhile, here's Philippine Foreign Minister Teodoro Locsin Jr. thanking China for its continued help to ASEAN member states in fighting COVID-19 pandemic. Let's listen in.
And industries. ASEAN's relationship with China for almost 3 decades has been dynamic, wide-ranging, and far-reaching. With COVID-19 ravaging the region, this has only strengthened our partnership. We have strived our hardest to mitigate the wide impact of the pandemic in numerous innovative ways. ASEAN and China have enhanced the health sector cooperation since our special foreign ministers meeting on COVID-19 last February. We have made collective efforts in sharing information and best practices, in capacity building across relevant sectors and industries, in the provision of medical supplies and assistance, in supporting the creation of the COVID-19 ASEAN Response Fund, the ASEAN Regional Reserve of Medical Supplies and Equipment, and the ASEAN Center on Public Health Emergencies and Emergencies. We thank China for its continued help to ASEAN member states, including the Philippines. With these efforts, we hope to bolster our region's resilience in dealing with the pandemic. Designating 2020 as the ASEAN-China Year of Digital Economy Cooperation has proven auspicious. Now, more than ever, digital technology takes center stage in view of the pandemic. We have harnessed the power of digital technology to provide ICT-enabled responses to COVID-19. The pandemic has digitally overhauled our lifestyles, rendering obsolete how we did most things, making it imperative to do things radically different as we have not on this scale before. We have turned to ICTs for telemedicine consultations, e-commerce, e-learning. ASEAN and China's earnest collaboration is crucial to catalyze digital transformation. Excellencies, the spotlight is on us. We cannot show signs of slowing down. ASEAN and China must continue to enhance our connectivity, especially through implementing the joint statement on synergizing the Master Plan on ASEAN Connectivity 2025 with the Belt and Road Initiative. Excellencies, When it comes to the South China Sea, our collective aspiration to agree on a mutually beneficial, effective, and substantive COC that would contribute to regional peace, security, and stability is in accordance with international law, including the 1982 UNCLOS. As country coordinator, the Philippines takes pride in the continuous progress of our resumption of the COC negotiations in the midst of the pandemic. We will get a lot done a lot faster. As the Philippines is the next host, we will meet face-to-face no later than November. Thank you, Excellencies.
Meanwhile, Malaysian Foreign Minister Hishamuddin Hussein talked about the COVID-19 challenges, and partnership with Australia. Let's listen in.
During these challenging times, I echo all of your thoughts in stating that we are truly appreciative of the beneficial relationship that we have with Australia. This was further uplifted recently through the special ASEAN-Australia Foreign Ministers meeting on COVID-19 on 30th of June this year, where we discussed ASEAN-Australia cooperation on matters of public health emergencies and ways forward in charting a recovery course post-COVID-19. This year, as we celebrate the 46th anniversary of ASEAN-Australia dialogue relations, we look forward to continuing and expanding our cooperation in the many facets and new spheres of our growing relationships. Co-Chair, Excellencies, ASEAN acknowledges Australia as an important and strategic partner for ASEAN, with solid relations encompassing wide areas of functional cooperation in all three ASEAN pillars. In the area of political security, Australia plays a constructive role in promoting regional peace and security, as well as in recognizing ASEAN's centrality in the evolving regional architecture. ASEAN and Australia also have extensive cooperation in the areas of cybersecurity, countering terrorism, trafficking in persons, as well as in maritime-related issues, amongst many others. On the economic front, our strong bonds is evident through the ASEAN-Australia-New Zealand Free Trade Area Partnership that has opened up opportunities for people and businesses from the two regions to engage closely. Thirdly, ASEAN also recognizes Australia's contribution to the socio-cultural pillar of ASEAN, including through education initiatives, and particularly now in the health-related sector.
In other news, the Interagency Task Force on Emerging Infectious Diseases has approved the proposal to increase ridership in public transportation by optimizing or reducing the physical distance between commuters. Transportation Secretary Arthur Tugade said the Economic Development Cluster, or EDC, and department's proposal got the approval and support by the National Task Force Against COVID-19, led by National Policy Against COVID-19 Chief Implementer Carlito Galvez and the IATF. Mr. Tugade said the department was receptive to an initial optimization of the physical distancing measure enforced inside public transport units to 0.75 meters between commuters starting Monday, September 14, before it could be further optimized to 0.5 meters after 2 weeks and to 0.3 meters after another 2 weeks. In a presentation made in a recent IATF EID meeting, the DOTR said the strict health protocols now being enforced to contain the spread of the coronavirus, such as the mandatory use of face masks and face shields by commuters, the 1 meter physical distancing measure being observed can be safely adjusted to an initial 0.75 meters and then to 0.5 meters and then later 0.3 meters to allow for optimization of ridership. In other news, the chairman of Singapore's airport operator has stepped aside after he faced a public backlash when a judge cleared an Indonesian maid accused of stealing from his family and criticized the case. The scandal involving Liu Manlyong has sparked a storm of anger and raised questions about how the system treated one of the city-state's best-known businessmen compared with a low-paid domestic helper, with calls mounting for him to quit. Following last week's ruling, Mr. Liu announced late Thursday he was bringing forward his retirement from his role as chairman of Changi Airport Group. I do not wish my current situation to be a distraction, the 74-year-old said, adding he was also stepping aside from positions at several other companies, including as an advisor to state investor Temasek. The case began in 2016 when the Liu family fired Party Liani and accused her of stealing 34,000 Singaporean dollars worth of items from them, including watches and clothes. Now, she denied the charges but was initially found guilty and sentenced to more than 2 years in jail. But on appeal, a High Court judge overturned the verdict, saying the Liu family had an improper motive in filing charges against her. And then it emerged in court that the maid was about to lodge a complaint with authorities that she had to clean the home and office of Liu's son, in addition to the businessman's house, which is illegal. Now, the judge said there was reason to believe the filing of the charges was aimed at preempting this move and questioned the credibility of Liu's son, Carl, as a witness. He also criticized the handling of evidence by detectives and prosecutors, and the police subsequently launched a probe. In a statement, Liu said that, quote, "My family members and I cooperated fully with the police and gave statements and evidence when required," adding he respected the court's decision. ASEAN in Focus will be right back.
Hindi mo ba alam, mauubos daw ang mga tissue products? Bakit naman? Ang raw materials daw ng mask at tissue products ay iisa lang. Saan naman galing ang balitang yan? Ay basta, narinig ko lang din. Maraming diling kayang nagpo-post sa Facebook at Twitter, kaya kung ako sa'yo, pumuha ka na din. Sige na't mauna na ako sa'yo
Huwag basta-basta magpaniwala
sa mga nakikita
o nababasa sa social media.
Magsaliksik at i-verify ang lahat ng impormasyon
Nakukuha sa internet.
Tandaan,
maging responsable tayo
sa paggamit ng social media
nang hindi magdulot ng panic sa iba.
Kung paanong dapat labanan ng COVID-19
ay gayon din ang ating pagsugpo
sa black propaganda at maling impormasyon.
Dennis Lu,
Lou Amelda,
Vivian Alfartosa,
Tyranel Pililu,
Hannibal Arevalo,
EBC,
Japan Bureau. We live in interesting times.
Ngayong Sabado sa Tagisan ng Galing, Part 2, Singing Edition.
Wow!
Fun! Good vibes at entertainment all-in-one upang pasayahin ang weekend nyo. Dito sa Tagisan ng Galing, Part 2, Singing Edition.
For win.
Tagisan ng Galing Part 2 is co-presented by Cooper, an expert in air conditioning and electromechanical. Also engaged in structural, electrical, fire protection, plumbing, and sanitary services. Cooper, your ultimate MEPS and air conditioning solutions. Unlad Incorporated International, fight against global poverty. Canrib Corporation, your ventilation and air conditioning specialist. Our sponsors, BDO, we find ways. JRC Industrial Sales, RS Square Variables Incorporated, your trusted UPS supplier and UPS maintenance provider in Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. RJK Services Manpower Agency Corporation, Robust Builders, Chris Raff Enterprises, Victory Carpentry, DOP Asiatic Pest Control Services, and AUB Aspire for the Future. In partnership with New Era University ETF, expanded tertiary education, equivalency and accreditation program. Embrace Cafe, we embrace differently abled persons.
A former Goldman Sachs executive is seeking a review of charges in Malaysia linked to the 1MDB scandal, according to his lawyer, after the bank and the country's government reached a settlement. Billions of dollars were looted from Sovereign Wealth Fund, One Malaysia Development Berhad, or 1MDB, in a fraud involving former Prime Minister Najib Razak and spent on everything from real estate to a super yacht. Goldman's role came under scrutiny over bond issues worth $6.5 billion it helped arrange for 1MDB, with Malaysia claiming money was stolen and filing charges against the bank and current and former employees. However, the Wall Street titan and Malaysia reached a $3.9 billion settlement back in July after lengthy negotiations, under which authorities agreed to end criminal proceedings. Now, Eng Chong-Hwa, a Malaysian ex-managing director at the bank, has been charged in Malaysia and the United States over the fraud. On Thursday, Mr. Eng's lawyer, Tan Hock Chuan, said a letter had been sent to Malaysia's Attorney General seeking to get 4 charges relating to abetment of false statements reduced or dropped. The Malaysian government had already withdrawn 1MDB-linked charges against 3 Goldman units last week. Now, Mr. Eng is currently in the U.S., which is investigating the fraud because money stolen was allegedly laundered through the American financial system, where he has pleaded not guilty to 1MDB-linked charges. The Asian Development Bank has approved a $500 million loan to help the Philippines prepare for natural hazards or public health emergencies, including piloting the first disaster insurance scheme in Southeast Asia. In a statement, the ADB said the new policy-based loan supports spending legislation in Congress to merge the functions of the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council and the Office of Civil Defense under a new Department of Disaster Resilience. This is seen to speed up the government's disaster response and substantially reduce coordination and bureaucratic inefficiencies. ADB Vice President Ahmed M. Said said this financing will help the country since it has been hit not only by the pandemic but by major disasters in recent years, including Super Typhoon Haiyan in 2013 and the Taal volcano eruption in January 2020. The disaster insurance scheme will be piloted in several cities across the country to bolster their fiscal resilience. It also aims to provide a predictable, timely source of financing for post-disaster response. The loan will make climate change adaptation and disaster risk reduction an integral part of comprehensive development plans of LGUs or local government units even beyond the pandemic. Care packages were given out to members of the community who live in government housing units and those who are living in vulnerable situations due to the pandemic. An INC Aid to Humanity. Here's a report from Justin Cusi from our EBC Canada Bureau.
We are here today at Friendship Inn in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, Canada, where members of the Iglesia ni Cristo or Church of Christ, through the leadership of their Executive Minister, Brother Eduardo V. Manalo, through the FYM Foundation, continuously fulfill their pledge in helping those who are in need through their Aid to Humanity outreach program, especially in these trying times we live in because of the COVID-19 virus. They prepared 106 care packages for each site to commemorate their 106th anniversary today, July 27, 2020. There are 3 sites in the province of Manitoba and 2 in the province of Saskatchewan that will be the recipients of these care packages. The recipients of these care packages containing essential goods are citizens of the community who live in government-built housing units and people who live in vulnerable situations. The Church of Christ continues to help all people, whether those of their faith or not. It is indeed a heartwarming feeling and a pleasant sight to see that even in these trying times, the Church of Christ continues to provide a community service that benefits everyone.
All right, well, we had a good opportunity. We met with Marcia, the coordinator of Friendship Inn, and she got us all to do a safety waiver, which is important in these times to make sure that everyone's being safe. And we actually had a really good opportunity. The Church of Christ reached out to our office, and we helped connect them with the Friendship Inn, and we were able to hand out a bunch of meals today. And the wonderful people at the Church of Christ were able to hand out hampers, care packages to many of the people that are needy in this community. So it was really good. Yeah.
Ito'y bahagi po ng inilunsad po ng pamamahala opo na pagtulong sa ating kapwa-tao sa pamamagitan po ng pamamahagi ng mga care packages. At ito po ay nasa ilalim ng FYM o Felix Y. Manalo Foundation, ang humanitarian arm po ng Iglesia ni Cristo. Gaya po ng nakasulat sa banal na kasulatan, opo, ipinag-utos ng Panginoong Diyos na tulungan ang mga nangangailangan. At bilang bahagi po ng pagsunod ng Iglesia ni Cristo sa utos na ito ng ating Panginoong Diyos, tayo'y nagsasagawa po ng Aid for Humanity. Ito po ay bahagi ng pananampalataya ng mga kaanib sa Iglesia ni Cristo na kahit na sa kalagayan natin sa kasalukuyan ay hindi po tumitigil ang mga kapatid sa Iglesia ni Cristo sa ganitong gawain.
Reporting for Eagle News from Manitoba, Canada, I am Justine Cusi. We live in interesting times.
Thank you, Justine. And that is the latest news in the Southeast Asian nations. Stay updated about the ASEAN region. I'm Alma Angeles. We live in interesting times.
Established 1975, rising in the list of top-performing universities in the